Equipment Hazards and Risk Control. Comprehensive Guide to Element 9, Paper 2. Welcome to Phani EHS Info. In this video, we'll focus on Element 9, Work Equipment Hazards and Risk Control. Element 9 is about focuses on managing risks related to machinery, tools, and other equipment in the workplace. We'll provide an overview of this element and highlight key exam questions to help you prepare effectively for NEBOSH IGC Paper 2. Equipment Safety. Let's begin with equipment safety. Identifying hazards related to machinery, tools, and equipment is essential for preventing accidents. Implementing safety measures such as guards, safety devices, and regular maintenance programs helps to protect employees from potential dangers. Ensuring that equipment is well maintained and equipped with the necessary safety features is crucial for minimizing risks. Safe systems of work. Next, we discuss safe systems of work. Developing and enforcing safe operating procedures is key to ensuring that equipment is used correctly and safely. Providing training for employees on the proper use and maintenance of equipment helps to reinforce these procedures and ensures that everyone is aware of best practices and safety protocols. Legislation and standards. Finally, let's cover legislation and standards. Compliance with regulations governing work equipment safety is a fundamental aspect of risk control. Understanding the legal responsibilities of both employers and employees helps to ensure that all safety requirements are met and that equipment is used in accordance with the law. Next, we'll review important questions from this element that you need to know for NEBOSH IGC Paper 1. Identify 3 categories of employees that should receive information, instruction and training on the safe use of work equipment. Categories of employees that should receive information, instruction and training should at least include users, supervisors, managers, maintenance staff and vulnerable persons. Identify 2 mechanical hazards associated with moving parts of machinery. Entanglement, trapping, collision impact, crushing, piercing injection stabbing puncture, friction abrasion, shearing severing, cutting. 2 non-mechanical hazards to which a machine operator may be exposed. Fire, contact with hot surfaces, electricity, noise, dusts. Outline the hazards faced by the employee in carrying petrol-driven chainsaw to fell a tree from ground level. Fire from petrol on hot parts. Burns from hot equipment parts. Entanglement in chain. Dust respiratory. Chipping impact. Noise from the sawing operation. Heat stress, working outside with PPE. Slips on wet surfaces. Trips and falls due to uneven surfaces. Outline the issues that could be included in such information, instruction and training. The issues that might be included in the information, instruction and training given on the safe use of work equipment include the manufacturer's instruction and maintenance manual, the written operating procedures, the methods of use of the equipment including its functions and the stop and start controls, the hazards arising from the use of the equipment such as moving parts, hot surfaces or ejected particles. The risks associated with its use as identified in the completed risk assessments. The precautions to be taken such as the use of guarding and personal protective equipment. The procedures for adjusting, cleaning and storing the equipment, the methods for isolating and disconnecting the equipment from its power source. The need to carry out pre-use inspections and the procedures for reporting defects. The emergency procedures to be followed in the event of fire, spillage or breakup, and the legal duties placed on the employee when using the equipment. Outline the factors to be considered before the machines put into use. The following factors such need consideration. Conformity to EU requirements through the CE mark or the issue of a declaration of conformity. The suitability of the machine for the task, location and environment. The availability of operating and maintenance instructions. The completion of training for employees and supervision. The commissioning and the provision of a practical demonstration by the machine suppliers. The correct siting of the machine with regard to its stability, the level of lighting and the space provided for operation and for carrying out maintenance. Ensuring that protective devices were in place for the dangerous parts of the machine. Controls were properly labeled and were tested to ensure they functioned correctly. Ensuring control measures were in place to counter the potential environmental effects of dust, fumes, noise and vibration. The selection of competent personnel to operate the machine and the preparation of a schedule for its regular inspection and maintenance. Outline defective conditions of non-powered hand tools that could present risks to the user. Defective conditions such as split shafts on tools such as on a hammer or an axe. Loose heads on tools, again with the hammer or axe in mind. Handles missing from files. Bird or mushroomed heads on chisels. Blunt blades on chisels, saws or knives. Split handles on tools, bent spanners or spanners with splayed jaws. Worn sockets and screwdrivers, and corroded tools. With respect to the use of portable electrical appliances in the workplace, identify 8 examples of faults and bad practices that could contribute to electrical accidents. Examples of faults and bad included: an initial failure to select the right equipment for the job and or environment. Inadequate checks on the equipment before use to ensure it was not damaged and a lack of procedures for its regular maintenance. Incorrect fuse rating and a failure to use residual current devices. Poor earth protection. The overloading of sockets. The use of cables which were split, twisted, kinked or jointed. Poor cable management resulting in trailing cables. The use of coiled extension cables and cables that were insufficiently protected and liable to damage, particularly in workshop or construction environments. Plugs with bent pins or broken cases. Unauthorized repairs to the appliances and misuse and abuse of the equipment by employees. Outline the mechanical and non-mechanical hazards that the groundsman could be exposed to during the use of the cylinder mower. Mechanical hazards to which the groundsman might be exposed include entanglement with and being cut by the rotating cylinder blades, shearing between the rotating cylinder and the bottom blade, the danger of being drawn in between exposed parts of the transmission machinery such as belts and pulleys and gears, crushing between the roller and the ground, being struck by material ejected from the machine and impact with the moving mower. Non-mechanical hazards include noise from the engine, vibration through the machine handles, heat from the exhaust, exhaust fumes and petrol vapors, ergonomic issues such as pulling the starter cord and handling the machine and exposure to the sun's rays. Outline measures to be taken to reduce the risk of injury during the maintenance of the washing machine. The measures that should be taken to reduce the risk of injury during the maintenance of the washing machine include: a suitable and sufficient risk assessment should be undertaken prior to the work commencing. Attempt to complete the maintenance work during a quiet period, for example during a weekend. Inform all employees of what was to happen. A safe system of work would need to be prepared for the operation, and this would involve isolating and locking off the electrical power to the machine, isolating pipelines by closing and locking off valves, releasing stored energy such as any buildup of pressure and allowing the washing machine, if hot, to reach room temperature before work started. Barriers would need to be erected around the working area and safe means of access provided to the machine for members of the maintenance staff. The maintenance staff should be skilled and competent in the work that had to be performed. A good standard of lighting would have to be provided. If any specialized tools were required for the maintenance work, they should be issued to the employees and used. Personal protective equipment such as overalls, gloves, and eye and head protection should be issued to and worn by those involved in the operation. Identify specific hazards that may be encountered in motor vehicle repair premises. Moving vehicles, damaged vehicles, fuel leakage, hot work, welding, cutting, grinding, soldering, electrical short circuits on vehicles, exhaust emissions from vehicles, vapors and fume from paint spraying, storage and use of flammable substances e.g. paints and thinners, naked flames e.g. welding, various chemicals including used oil, paints, thinners, powder coating, fall from height working close to pits, use of lifting equipment, hoists and jacks and their suitable maintenance and capabilities, trailing cables e.g. inspection lamps, damaged bodywork giving sharp edges, noise from cutting operations, metal shaping, engines without exhausts fitted, slip, trip and fall hazards due to items being left on the floor e.g. tools, equipment etc. Dust from grinding, sanding, brake fittings, clutches, etc. Outline control measures other than personal protective equipment that would be necessary to ensure the health and safety of the chainsaw operator and other persons involved in the operation. Segregation, risk assessment, method statement, safe operating procedures, fire controls, chemical controls including storage, first aid facilities and arrangements, warning signs and signals plus awareness training, welfare facilities, washing and changing. Identify 4 hazards associated with maintenance operations on machinery in the workplace. Hazards here could include contact with dangerous moving parts of the machinery, electricity, stored energy such as heat or pressure, contact with gases, fumes and vapors, exposure to radiation, exposure to biological agents, manual handling of heavy machine parts or tools. Outline measures to be taken to minimize the risk of injury during the maintenance of machinery. Measures such as the following may reduce risks during such work. Designing the machine where possible to reduce the need to remove guards for routine maintenance and lubrication. To operate a permit-to-work system which would help to ensure that electrical power to the machine was isolated and locked off, and all pipelines leading to the machine were similarly isolated. To release stored energy and to allow sufficient time for the machinery to cool down before maintenance starts. Where necessary, means of access such as a scaffold may have to be erected and barriers and warning signs placed around the machinery to advise workers that maintenance work was in progress. It would be necessary to use only skilled and competent personnel in possession of specialized tools where required to carry out the work. To provide them with personal protective equipment such as head protection, eye protection and harnesses. To ensure adequate standards of lighting and ventilation in the work area and to arrange for the work to be properly supervised. Outline the hazards and risks to which a worker could be exposed when cutting down a tree using a petrol-driven chainsaw. Here there are a good range of hazards associated with the task including contact with the moving parts or the hot exhaust system of the chainsaw, exposure to fumes and dust, Hazards arising from manual handling operations. Exposure to noise and vibration. Falls from a height. Handling lubricating oils which might lead to dermatitis. Flying particles such as tree bark and sawdust. Uneven ground or wet grass which could lead to slips and falls. Falling objects such as branches or the tree itself. Contact with overhead surfaces. Hazards arising from adverse weather conditions and stings or bites from insects or reptiles. Factory cleaning staff have to use a rotary floor polisher each night. Identify the associated hazards and what control measures could be used to reduce the risks. The associated hazards could include entanglement of persons in the rotating parts, slips, trips and falls on wet or slick surfaces, noise from the machine, vibration generated by the machine function, electrical hazards when considering wet substances and electrical components, ergonomic hazards resulting from the excessive bodily forces required to move and use the machine. Possible chemical contamination of the operator from the cleaning agents used. The possible control measures could be guarding of dangerous parts of equipment, cable management to remove slip and trip potential, isolation of the electrical source for the task of changing brushes, polishing pads, etc. Appropriate slip-resistant footwear worn. Regular testing and maintenance of the equipment to ensure is state for continued safe use. Residual current devices RCDs, trip devices. Information, instruction, training and supervision to ensure proper use of equipment. Operator to be trained in and to undertake pre-use safety checks of the equipment to be used. Identify the hazards associated with the use of a cement mixer and outline control measures that can be used to reduce the risks. Hazards controls measures. Cement mixer hazards and controls. Manual handling. Hazard, injury from lifting. Controls, use mechanical aids, training, rest breaks. Cement dust. Hazard, skin and respiratory irritation. Controls, PPE, gloves, overalls, RPE. Moving parts and ejection. Hazard, injuries from moving parts. Controls, install guards, follow safe procedures. Noise. Hazard, hearing damage. Controls, hearing protection, job rotation. Electric power. Hazard, electric shock. Controls, equipment maintenance, use RCDs. General. Risk assessment, safe work systems, training. Identify the factors that should be considered before pedestal, pillar, drill is first used to reduce the risk of injury or ill health to the operators. There are a range of factors that should be considered before it is first used to reduce the risk of injury or ill health to the operators, including undertaking a risk assessment ensuring protective devices were properly provided in place, compliance with local health and safety legislation, the machine's suitability for the type of work it was to do, that it was CE marked, the availability of operating and maintenance instructions, arranging for the commissioning and the provision of a practical demonstration by the machine suppliers, the correct sighting of the machine with regard towards stability, the level of lighting, the space provided for operation and access, that controls were properly labeled and were tested to ensure they functioned correctly, ensuring control measures were in place to counter the environmental effects of dust, noise and vibration, providing personal protective equipment such as goggles, the selection of competent personnel to operate the machine, the preparation of a schedule for its regular inspection and maintenance. Identify 4 mechanical hazards presented by pedestal drills and, in each case, outline how injury may occur. Contact with the rotating drill bit entanglement. Contact with the drill bit stabbing and or puncture. Hit by an unsecured workpiece impact. Making contact with swarf, cutting severing. Being hit by materials or a broken bit ejection. Being hit by a falling workpiece crushing. The control measures to be considered to include adequate information, instruction, training and supervision. Wearing of appropriate clothing to prevent entanglement, tight-fitting cuffs, no rings, hair under a cap if long, no ties, no loose clothing. Prevention of stabbing or puncturing, keep hands away from drill bit, implement safe systems of work safe operating procedures. Not being hit ejected workpiece, ensure adequate clamping securing of the workpiece. Coming into contact with the swarf, instigate a swarf chip breaker being ground into the drill bit. Identify 4 hazards associated with the use of a bench top grinder. 4 hazards associated with the use of a bench top grinder are entanglement on the rotating wheel or spindle, trapping between the wheel and the tool rest, disintegration of the wheel, friction and abrasion following contact with the revolving wheel, being struck by material or sparks ejected from the wheel, noise, vibration, inhalation of dust from the material being ground. Other than a guard, 4 control measures that could be introduced to reduce risk to a worker using a bench top grinder are ensuring the grinder was permanently fixed and bolted in position, the installation of local exhaust ventilation, the provision and maintenance of correctly positioned stop, start and emergency stop controls, ensuring an inspection of the equipment before use, the use of competent operators, the provision and use of personal protective equipment such as impact-resistant goggles, face masks, overalls with tight-fitting cuffs and hearing protection. Introducing a program of regular maintenance. Identify 8 possible risks to the health and safety of a cleaner in an office. There are a range of health and safety risks to which an office cleaner may be exposed, including ergonomic risk arising from the manual handling of waste and heavy floor cleaning machines which could be inadequate for the task to be performed. The cleaner may come in contact with hazardous substances such as cleaning materials and shards or broken glass in the waste and could be exposed to dust during the cleaning process. Inhalation of dangerous fumes vapors from cleaning chemicals. Slips, trips and or falls on wet or slippery surfaces. Some equipment used could be electrically driven, and this would involve electrical hazards particularly if the equipment was faulty, not subjected to regular maintenance and was not used in conjunction with a residual current device. The cleaner may carry out some work at height to clean windows or high surfaces and there would be the danger of falling. Risks arising from the working environment would include the temperature of the office particularly if the heating or air conditioning was turned off, and if working alone and unsupervised, with little means of communication with a nominated person. If no security procedures in place there, would always be the risk of him/her being subjected to violence from an intruder. Outline the basic requirements that you would consider when selecting a guard or safety device for a piece of work equipment. The basic requirements for the selection of a guard or safety device include its suitability for its intended purpose, the robust nature of its construction which would withstand the forces of ejection, not increase the risk to operators through contact with rough or sharp edges, its location at an adequate distance from a danger zone, no easy way to bypass it, not restricting the operator's view, its maintenance which should be able to be carried out easily and safely. Thanks for watching. For important questions and answers, And to learn about the remaining elements of NEBOSH IGC, please subscribe and follow my channel.
This is all about today's topic. Thanks for watching Phani EHS Info. And don't forget to subscribe our channel to get immediate notification of our videos. Share our videos to your friends and colleagues to create safety awareness. If you have any questions and requirements, please comment in comment box.